Proceed with passion. Hi, I'm Ray of Sunshine. That's what the sign says on the side of the bridge that we're on now, the 1111 bridge, in the C section of my video series. Welcome to the new world, Proceed with Passion. This is the first time you get this view of my sanctuary, which is more of the big picture view. In a lot of the previous videos, if you've seen any of those, I have much closer up views. I discuss a lot of the people that are involved with all of these sorts of things that are hanging around here. And I have lots of stories of all of that kind of stuff. But this is a big picture view of my sanctuary. And you may notice that there are some different things going on, different placements than they were in previous videos. You may notice some differences about me, maybe some subtle differences, maybe not so subtle, but there's differences, there's big differences in some ways, and not so many differences in other ways, especially if you compare to the beginning of this series. And that's what it's designed for, is to take us from the old world energy to the new world energy. So you're going to see a lot of old world energy over there, and you're going to see a lot of new world magic coming up. Speaking of magic, I don't know if you noticed that my clock is 11:11 is the time that's on there. And at the end of this presentation, it's going to be 11:11 still, which is magic. And there's more magic coming up in the D series and beyond, which is the future. So this bridge that we're on, 1111, right? We have the 1111 holding up this bridge that we're crossing, is a big bridge because it has a lot to connect. It's connecting a big chunk of eternity that we're coming out of to a big chunk of eternity that we're moving into. And right now is the transition. Right now is the 2012 transition, and that's what the C section represents. So you may notice different things going on in my sanctuary. You may notice different things about me, but there'll be some similarities as well. Some things that don't change, for example, is that I talk about different coming up. And we have different coming up on the horizon like we ain't never seen before. And so I'm in the process of developing different, discovering different, doing different. I do things differently to discover something differently. And I have lots of examples of that and lots of stories in the old world videos, the before videos. That you can see the progression if you look at it. And it's there intentionally for a reason to show that. So you're going to notice, you may notice some of those differences, but one of the differences that you won't notice is that I repeat things, and I'm going to repeat some things in this video, and if you want to hear me repeat them some more, you can see them in all the other videos too. One of the biggest things is doing something different to discover something different. And, you know, a lot of my attempts at doing something different these days, which, you know, I give accounts of in the before videos, I'm meeting people. And, you know, so I meet people, I discover things about them, they discover things about them, they discover things about me. Everybody's in the process of discovering and having lots of fun, which is another one of my motivating factors, because you can't have too much fun. There's no such thing as too much happy. And I repeat that on all of those other videos too, because it's my truth. And that's what you're going to hear in this presentation is my truth. So the truth is that we are on this big bridge heading from old energy to new energy. And in that transition, discovering different makes the transition a little bit smoother. And you might notice in the C section, and leading up to it, there's a smoothness that doesn't exist in the older videos. There's a lot of elements that don't exist in the older videos, and there are a lot of elements in the older videos that don't exist over here. And that's your mission, to discover what they are in the process of discovering things about you and how you fit into all this energy, because it's the era, the 2012 era, the paradigm of the shift. And that's what this whole video presentation is a metaphor of. So yesterday, my different adventure was going to a different place for lunch. And this was different than most of the times that I go out. Like it wasn't your typical Joe's Diner down the street, because this had an ethnic flair to it. And I had never been there before. I went with my friend Claire, and they had a buffet kind of thing going on. I had asked the cook afterward what the theme was, because I really couldn't quite place it. And he said, well, it's a combination. It's Dominican Republic and Puerto Rican. So apparently he was one of those, and his partner was the other one of those, and they melded. And so they had the rice and bean thing going on, and the meats and the fish, and big assortment to choose from. So when we got there, we didn't really exactly know the routine. I mean, they were standing behind the glass in front near the buffet. So I kind of had it figured out a little bit, but it didn't say order here, pick up here, anything like that. So I asked the guy that was standing there, and he was very nice, and he said, oh, well, this is the routine. Just follow me, and I'm going to pick some food and go to the end and pay. And he was taking his food to go, but in the meanwhile, and this wasn't really different, because it's been happening a lot for me these days as I meet people for all different reasons in all different kind of environments. Well, every once in a while, there's one that I find an attraction for, and I haven't talked about this. I haven't revealed this in any of the videos, but there have been occasions when I say, "Well, nice meeting you, and here's my number, by the way. You could give me a call, because I'm in the process of letting things go, and letting fear go is one of them. That was my whole motivation, my whole impetus behind doing the YouTube videos, is letting go fear, and there are examples of those, many stories in the previous videos of stuff that I'm letting go. One day I run into this guy, and I tell him, today I'm letting go of worry, and he said, oh yeah, that's a great idea. I'm going to let go of worry too. So I have a lot of those stories over there. Well, and I also talk about letting go of fear, which I figured I did. Okay, I let go of fear today. That's the end of that. But it wasn't the end of that, because this guy who was in the restaurant standing over there waiting for his food is smiling at me, and the most beautiful smile I've ever seen in my life. And he's practically jumping in my arms from along the other side of the room. And I'm kind of thinking about, well, when are you going to come over and say, let's get together, or here's my phone number, or anything like that. And it didn't happen. And he went out the door, and I'm saying, oh, what happened here? We came so close, but I realized I just let fear hold me back. I'm thinking of all the times that I ended up, which is kind of crazy, but I'm doing a lot of crazy things these days. And I go up to people, and there's a couple of guys that I'm telling you about, and I say, oh, and here's my phone number too. And that didn't work out. So, those kind of thoughts are in the back of my mind. Like practically my whole life flashes before me as I'm thinking about getting together with this guy, and it didn't happen. So the other thing that flashed before me was, my God, this happened back in 1999. So, and it changed the direction of the entire millennium for me. But I came this close. It came this close to being different, and that was when I met Sid, my best friend Sid. And I have tons of stories about Sid on the previous videos, and the adventures that we went on. And Sid loved having fun, and so that's where I started learning about can't have too much fun, and no such thing as too much happy, so why not contribute to it? And that's another one of the things that I repeat on a lot of those videos, and I'm going to keep repeating on a lot of my videos, because it's my truth. So anyway, the story that popped into my mind was when I had met Sid, and I talked about this on some of those AB videos back there. I have all those stories about when Sid and I used to go around talking to dead people, and Sid being abducted by aliens, and a lot of unusual kind of adventures. So over there, I'm telling the story about when I met Sid, which was at the Mirror Bar in Providence. And, it was a bar, and there was a big mirror along the front of it. And that's how we first met each other, by staring at each other in the mirror. And I don't know how things are. I haven't been to a bar. I don't even know if we have bars anymore. But anyway, back then, the way it was a common practice if you wanted to meet somebody to buy them a drink. And so I'm sitting there waiting for him to buy me a drink. And I just figure, if he has that much interest, he should have shown at least that much interest before I'm going to make a move. Although I felt there was a very strong connection, but it wasn't happening. I'm sitting there, my drink is empty, Uh, Finally, I waited as long as I could wait without ordering another drink, and I put on my coat and I go to leave. And I have my hand on the handle of the door to leave the place, and the bartender says, "Hey, buddy, the guy down the end wants to buy you a drink." And that's where it all started. And wow, you'll learn about the direction that my life went after that. But I found out from Sid afterwards, because he had told me that Sid was psychic. And he was just developing some of his skills back then. So he was sitting there at the bar, realizing, he said, and this is the way he put it to me. He said, I'm looking at you, realizing this is the guy. This is the guy that I know that I was going to be meeting after Bob passed away. He was with somebody, a man named Bob, for 31 years. Bob had just passed away a few months before. And so he had these premonitions about somebody that he was going to meet. And he knew it was me. And so fear kept him paralyzed because he wasn't quite sure if he wanted to dive into this or not. And to take it even a step further, he later told me that he also had visions of the toilet, believe this or not, the toilets in the prison, because we went to prison. And he said, I knew that I was going to be going to prison if I bought you a drink. And he did, and we did, and that whole story is in my pilot video, which you'll have the opportunity to click on at the end of this video. The pilot video, by the way, is very different than this video, than the whole C-section. The C-section is different. There's a transition, there's a crossover. You might be even noticing, like now, for example, there's still some shadows going on here. You're going to be noticing some differences as I transition over into the next series, out of the C section into what is yet to come. So there's a transition, and the transition. You might notice in the C section, for example, there's a smoothness that's occurring that didn't occur in a lot of those earlier before videos. And so you're going to see you'll see little bits, little snippets of me, and you'll see little snippets that you don't recognize, and you're going to see snippets now that you don't recognize that were there. Where did they go? Well, I let them go to make room for something else, and I did things different to discover things different about myself. One of the things that you might want to consider doing different to discover something different about yourself is, and this is an easy one, which is why I'm suggesting it, and I'm not going to let you forget about it, because I mention it on every single one of those videos, which you're going to watch eventually, sooner or later. But you can do something different, and an easy accomplishment would be to send this video to some character that it would be out of character for you to send it to. Why? Try it and discover, and help them discover something different that they might not have otherwise had the opportunity to discover, because you're going to discover a lot. When you're ready, there's no rush, they're not going anywhere. When you're ready, you're going to go back to the earlier videos, and you're going to see the progression. You're going to see the progression that's happening right in this video series, which is a metaphor for going from the old world to the new world. And we're just crossing that. We're just crossing that bridge right now. So stick with me as we proceed with passion. And in the meanwhile, it's playtime. Create you.